So last night, for the first time in my life that I can recall, I sent a meal back to the kitchen. Now I should explain the context of this. Last evening, my wife and I decided, you know what, we'd like to spend some time together. So we went out to the local Applebee's and had dinner. You know, we got a drink and a good meal. And we got our drinks and a nice appetizer, and we ate that. And then about, 20 minutes later, our waitress comes back and says, so your meal orders, I forgot to put those into the kitchen. And she was apologizing profusely, and it was no big deal to us. And she said that, she'd get it out as quick as possible. A few minutes later, she brought it out. Now, I should explain. My wife got a burger that normally comes with bacon, and she asked for no bacon on it, and it came. And I had ordered I think it was 4 cheese, mac and cheese with chicken tenders. Sounded great.
4 mac and cheese.
4 cheese.
Oh, 4 cheese. Okay.
No, I wasn't that.
Okay, no second.
No, but on the menu I noticed before I ordered it that it said it comes with bacon in it. And I asked the waitress, is it possible to get this without bacon? She said, yeah, of course. And so when my meal came, I was looking at it, and I'm like, I noticed, there's some bacon in here. It looks like, and so I'm just picking at it, trying to discover whether that's actually bacon or not. And she was actually gracious enough to remember, and as I was looking at it, she's like, "What is there bacon in there?" She actually asked me about it, and I said, "Yeah, I think there is." And so she offered, can I bring it back for you and I can remake it for you? And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And so a few minutes later, she comes back and says, "I'm sorry, they can't make it without bacon. The sauce comes with the bacon in it." And I said, "That's all right," and I got fish and chips instead. But as I was sitting there thinking about this, and I really wasn't bothered about it, and even if I had been, I considered, the wisdom of being gracious to this waitress that we had, and just trying my best to show the Spirit of Yahweh that, a small thing like this really isn't a big deal, and to be gracious to her and to let her know that it's okay. And that, in that, I didn't need to preach to her necessarily, but that hopefully just if I could have, had a good spirit of being gracious and thankful that she's bringing me food at all, and so let her know that it was truly okay, that maybe that little light could shine for her, and who knows whether that will have an important impact in her life or not. I don't know, but I believe that's an important thing to do as the people of Yahweh. Now, I tell that whole story to explain that when we got back to the camp after we were done with our meal, I was, I had my beer and my drink, or my beer and my meal, and I was relaxed and content. And my body said, it's been a long day. We went out on a field trip. It'd be great to take a nap now. But I got back and I thought to myself, I just spent 2 hours having a great conversation with my wife, but we haven't been here fellowshipping with everyone. And more importantly than that, just as we were pulling in, the horn sounded for the beginning of services. And so we came up here, and I knew, my body said, a nap would be great. But I wanted to be here to praise Yahweh.
Hallelujah.
And so I did that, and it was good. But that got me thinking, what if I had made the decision, to go to my tent and have a nap? I'm not sure that would have been wrong. But even if it was, I know that I'm surrounded by people here who are gracious and forgiving and would understand and would give me a second chance. And that got me thinking, what if I was in a situation where I wasn't? What if I was in a situation and amongst a people who, at the first misstep I had, said to me, "What are you doing? You're worthless." Or what if I was amongst some people who were accusing me or saying to me, "Deny that Yahshua is the Messiah and deny that Yahweh is the Creator, or die"? What would I do then? Would it be so easy for me to know that whatever, there's always Yahweh's mercy to take care of me, Yahweh's grace to protect me? And would I have the strength of spirit in that situation, when my life is on the line, to say, "Yes, I believe in Yahweh, and that Yahshua is the Messiah"? Or what if they, more than that, said, "We're not going to kill you. We're going to kill your family and make you watch"? Or something even worse that I can't imagine. Do I have the strength of spirit and the peace that protects us to know that I can stand there, lay there, sit there and say, "Yahweh is my Creator, and Yahshua is the Messiah"? And from time to time I think about that, knowing that tribulation is going to come. And I try to find out within myself, am I strong enough to withstand that pressure? The pains, physical, spiritual, emotional, that I may have to endure. And I'd like to think that I can. And I bring it back to knowing that being here is a refreshment for us. And it's so wonderful to be amongst brethren. As we march forward in the battle for Yahweh, knowing that if I stumble a little bit, the soldier behind me is going to have my back and say, "Careful, watch your step, keep going." But knowing that and thinking, that's all well and good as long as I'm not the soldier that says, "You know what, this is all too much for me. Take my sword, stab the guy behind me, and run off." If I do that, I know Yahweh won't be pleased with me. So having said all that, and showing you what I've been thinking about past 12 hours, I'd like to turn to Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 19. It says, "Therefore, brethren, since we have confidence to enter the holy place by the blood of Yahshua, by a new and living way which he inaugurated for us through the veil, that is, his flesh, and since we have a great priest over the house of Yahweh, let us draw near with a sincere heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled clean from every evil conscience, and our bodies washed with pure water." Here we see the grace that Yahweh has given us through his Son Yahshua, and the assurance and strength that we can have in that. But he goes on. He says, "Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering. For he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. For if we go on sinning willfully after receiving the knowledge of the truth, there no longer remains a sacrifice for sins, but a terrifying expectation of judgment, and the fury of fire which will consume the adversaries. Anyone who has set aside the law of Moses dies without mercy on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much severer punishment do you think he will deserve who has trampled underfoot the Son of Yahweh, and has regarded as unclean the blood of the covenant by which he was sanctified, and has insulted the Spirit of grace? For we know him who said, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay, And again, Yahweh will judge his people. It is a terrifying thing to fall into the hands of the living Yahweh. So this letter, I find it interesting in this portion of this letter, that the writer first says, here's your strength, here's the assurance through grace of the wonderful mercy of Yahweh, that you can be strong in this. But then he goes on to say, here's what's going to happen to you if you're that soldier who betrays your brother, who betrays Yahweh. And if I was reading this for the first time, I'd come to this point and think to myself, what hope do I have? Because I know that I have come in through Yahshua. But I'm still flesh. I still make mistakes. I try not to sin, but I know that I do. But then he reminds us, says in verse 32, "For remember the former days when, after being enlightened, you endured a great conflict of sufferings, partly by being made a public spectacle through reproaches and tribulations, and partly by becoming sharers of those who were so treated. Now I, for one, have never had the opportunity of being made a public spectacle for my faith, and to share in the tribulations of others who are going through the same thing. In some way, I wish that I had been, and that it would give me more confidence to know when those times come how I will respond." But nonetheless, he goes on, "For you showed sympathy to the prisoners and accepted joyfully the seizure of your property, knowing that you have for yourselves a better possession and a lasting one. Therefore, do not throw away your confidence, which has a great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of Yahweh, you may receive what was promised. For yet in a very little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one shall live by faith. And if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him." But then he says, "But we are not of those who shrink back to destruction, but of those who have faith to the preserving of the soul." And I was considering yesterday, I thank Yahweh abundantly for how easy it is potentially to survive when my adversaries are pulling off my fingernails and threatening my family. Say, deny, deny, deny. How easy it is to just say, I believe. And I thank him for that. But knowing, on the other side of it, how easy it could be to just say, I deny. But indeed, if we are truly members of Yahshua's body, then how can we deny? But we are not of those who shrink back. We are those steady soldiers who continue on in the march for Yahweh's kingdom. Let's turn to Matthew chapter 24. You know, something I long for is the peace that comes from Yahweh through Yahshua. And not just a temporary kind of peace that I feel every once in a while before my flesh gets in the way, but a permanent peace that is so deep within my soul that these questions I'm posing to myself, will I be able to stand? Won't be questions. Let's read chapter 24, starting in verse 7. Matthew 24, verse 7. "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pains. Then, says Yahshua, they will deliver you to tribulation, and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. At that time, many will fall away and will betray one another and hate one another. So Yahshua makes a claim to us. There will be those amongst us who will betray one another. As much as I don't want to think about that, Yahshua has told us that's what's going to happen. And I think about that, and I think, you know, for the brethren here, I love all of you, and it would be so hurtful to have any one of you betray me. But I think about that the next step further. What if I know these people are coming, and I'm sitting in my home praying to Yahweh for deliverance and peace and His will to be done, and I'm there with my family, and then they come knocking on the door, and someone in my family opens the door and says, "There he is, take him." Where will my faith be then? Will I still have that peace that guards my heart to be able to say, Yahweh is good. He has sent His Son, and it is good. And let's go on. It says, many false prophets will arise and will mislead many. Because lawlessness is increased, most people's love will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end, he will be saved. And I think about, you know, if the son of perdition were to rise from amongst Yahweh's people and to betray every last one of us, what would we think then? We think Yahshua has been with us all along, or will we think maybe we've had this wrong the whole time? I don't know what we'll think. But if we are so blessed to survive to the end of all these things, then we know that our salvation comes. And I don't know how long I've been up here, but I just want to finish with, it's alright.
Okay, go ahead.
But I just want to finish then with a couple scriptures of encouragement. I've gone through this all and saying, you know, what if all these horrible things happen? And they will happen. But I desire for all of you to make it through that. Let's turn to Isaiah chapter 9. See, the way I wonder if it goes, you ever notice when you don't have peace, you sort of, or full peace, you sort of waver back and forth between being confident in Yahweh and feeling weak. That, you know, you're sort of like, one moment you're like, everything's great, the next moment, I'm tired. And so I figure that's the importance of peace. That wavering doesn't happen, that we're steady and all is calm within us. In verse 6, as I'm sure many of you know this scripture, it shows us where our confidence comes from. It says, for a child will be born to us, a son will be given to us, and the government will rest on his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty Elohim, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace. And in Philippians chapter 4, Philippians chapter 4, verse 4. It says, "Rejoice in the Master always. Again I will say, rejoice. Let your gentle spirit be known to all men. The Master is near. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to Yahweh. And the peace of Yahweh, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and minds in the Master, Yahshua Messiah." So, brethren, be full of peace. Seek out that peace, knowing that it is your strength and your shield when times become difficult. And pay attention to what it said just before that. Rejoice, rejoice. Because when the joy of Yahweh is near, his peace is as well. And I wasn't really planning this, but there's something I wrote the other day that I would like to read to you. I sort of, for those of you who know me, know that I write stories and poetry and that kind of thing. And I decided this year I wanted to write a poem for the Feast of Tabernacles. And I finished it the other night. And it goes like this. Autumn eyes the completion of days, and I think about freedom all over again. There's a breeze that blows, I remember, to free my lips like orange embers. And I think about all the king's children, of how they rejoice in his presence. And the campfire glows warm, the trees sing along, the harvest thrives strong, and there reaches his outstretched arm. So I can imagine standing on the bright blue stones of that royal court, where we've all gone to find mercy. To one side stands the priestly musicians, guitars and cymbals, jamming the rhythmic melody. Singers harmonize as the strings sail forth, where it all comes together in intricate symphony. And the chorus holds close nearby, back straight and heads exultant, the strong notes of their voices proclaiming the immensity of their commitment. Servants dressed in white bring dishes full of fine food, fruit and seeds and savory treats to bless those of the celebration mood. And there's a great crowd at this feast, where life is easy to find, and everyone is dancing freely, with no reservation or shame or fear. Arms are loose, and bellies have no sour feel, when the ecstatic peace of that movement comes over these people. And I'm amazed that such joy could bless so many so thoroughly. This is the feast of life, in the palace of life, in the country of the infinite. And the refrain remains, rejoice, rejoice, rejoice.